Hi, and welcome back to my channel. In this video, you have what probably will be the second to last Goodreads Choice Awards focused vlog. I'm hoping to get through a significant number of books. And I'm starting this off very early, first thing Monday morning, because I want to make sure to get it done. And I have plans for this evening. And also because I want to talk about this book. I mentioned at the end of last week's vlog that actually, no, I think I mentioned it in my reaction video, which has already gone up by the point that you see this, where I was choosing what I was going to vote for, and that I couldn't vote for this one yet because I hadn't finished yet. I didn't know if it was going to stick the landing. I went back and I changed my vote after I finished this, right in, squeezing in at the end there. This might be one of the best fantasy books I've read all year. And yes, I've read my all-time favorite series this year. The way that politics and everything, all of the machinations work together in here, it's not even reveal heavy. There's definitely a reveal at the end that makes you go, wait, what? What just happened? That very end, that last little bit of the book, I was listening to it and I'm like, wait, did I just hear what I thought I heard? And I had to get this out and go back to that section and read that again and go, wait, what? I want the sequel right now. Can I pretty please have the sequel to this book right now? Like, actually all of the, I think it's a trilogy, both of them, please, so I can read them. Because I have no doubt he's going to end it on a cliffhanger. The second one, which comes out later in 2024, I don't even know when. I want it right now. It's hard to talk about as well because I don't want to give away any of the reveals or anything. But there's just a level of complexity to the relationships, to all of the plot beats, everything in there that I just absolutely loved. And the world itself, what it's building on, and the reason why different groups are doing different things and trying to understand those different aspects of it. It's so complex. The growth as an author between the Lycanes trilogy, which was his debut book and trilogy, and this one is phenomenal. I will definitely, he's definitely an auto-buy author now, so I really enjoyed it. I'm so excited. This is definitely a 5-star book. Then I picked up audiobook-wise Becoming Free Indeed by Ginger Duggar Ruolo. I realized I have this is from one of those additional library subscriptions that I picked up. So it has a different app that I'm accessing it in, and I'm like, oh wait, I do actually have an audiobook copy of this. This is very different to her sister's book, Counting the Cost. This is much more theologically based. It's not really even a memoir. I get why they put it in this category, but it's not the same type of book. I'm trying to figure out why it's not necessarily, not really resonating with me, but like almost rubbing me the wrong way. And I think it's because it's, as much as she's talking about different things, and she calls it untangling, I think that's what she calls it, what she used to believe with what she now believes, it's still very preachy. It's heavy with references to scripture, like including the verses themselves. And I've talked about that before with Christian fiction, where they'll like copy paste parts of scripture and put it in there. And I get why she's doing that, but I think in a book this short, it's almost using too much of that. I'm not really sure. It's going to be a quick read. I'm that far through and I listened to it for just half an hour last night. It's definitely a different kind of book, and I don't think this one's going to make it to the second half. I'm actually surprised that it was on the list. I think probably just because of who she is, because it's definitely not in the same category as Jill's book. So we shall see what I think about the rest of the book. As far as the other books that I'm going to read this week, I'm going to still continue to hopefully plow my way through different books for the Goodreads Choice Awards. I have used some of my Libra FM credits that I have been saving up. I've gotten Fragile Treasure Power, let's see, and the other one was The Book That Wouldn't Burn. So I still have, I think, 3 more credits to use on that. but I'm going to use them sparingly because I'm coming to the end of what I've gotten through the library because the holds are really long. So we shall see. Okay, I have quite a few books to update on for this vlog. First off, I finished Becoming Free Indeed by Ginger Ducker Vuolo, and my thoughts remain basically the same. This is definitely much more theologically based, a lot less life stuff. I don't really think it's a memoir. I would not put it in that category, although I don't know what category to put it in. So at one point, she does start talking about the hypocrisy, the blatant hypocrisy in the behavior of Bill Gothard, the leader of this movement. And she talks about the fact that, hey, he didn't live what he preached. And it helped her come to grips with the fact that she needs to follow, and I believe this as well, the scripture and God, and not a fallible man. And most of the book is about that. And so this is definitely not a book for a wider audience. Like I predicted, it did not make the second round. And oh, I have so many books to talk about because I didn't update yesterday because I was filming and updating and editing and getting that video out. I don't remember if I started talking about Blood Debts. Now this is an arc. I got this from Beautifully Bookish Bethany when I became one of her patrons. This is not the finished copy, but I did find this really intriguing. And it's set in New Orleans, and there's the idea of witches and magic. That seems to be a theme with a lot of the fantasy books this year. And there's two basically rival families. One are the two main characters, they're twins. It's their family, but their grandmother was disgraced. And then there's this other family where the former best friend of the female twin, her grandmother became the queen of this coven, of this group. And there are different types of magic, and the magic that they follow is based on the moon, and the magic that the white people follow is based on the sun. And it's really complex and really interesting. And there's the idea of certain types of the magic were split from the moonlight magic. I forget exactly what they called it. And necromancy is one of the things that was split off and was thought low of. And there's something that happens for one of the characters in here where something happens to a person that this character loves. And it's got to be that he's going to go to necromancy. There's going to be possibly these problems with this potential character. And yes, in the epilogue, you do see that. But for a while, you don't actually see that. And you're like, come on, just tell me what happened. And so that does keep you engaged. And I was really engaged in the story. A couple of the scenes got pretty graphic, more so than I expected. But I really liked the interplay here and the complex family dynamics, the very real family dynamics between these sisters, the aunts of the two main characters. So I probably will pick up the second book in this one. I have one that I have complicated feelings about. Well, not complicated, it's just tricky for me to figure out where I feel or how I feel about it. And that is The Book That Wouldn't Burn by Mark Lawrence. At first, one of the things that was really annoying, not annoying, but it sort of put a damper on my reading experience was the fact that there's two main perspectives in here. And with one of the perspectives, Levira, I could get a grasp on what was happening to her. And I loved learning about the magic of this library through her perspective. But the other perspective ever, when it's talking about where he lives and what's going on, I did not understand it at all. There was a lot to the world building that does eventually get explained, but very further on, like hundreds of pages into the book, that just didn't make sense. And obviously, Ever and the characters in his perspective, they understood the things that were going on because that was their life. But as a reader, I had nothing on which to hook any anchor for my understanding. And so I really liked Levira's perspectives, and then there was Ever's perspectives. And as Levira discovers things, I ended up understanding Ever's perspectives more. It gets very complicated. At one point, there's some stuff in this that seems very much like The Magician's Nephew. The whole pools and going to different worlds or different times. I really liked that. I think The Magician's Nephew is an understated installment in the Chronicles of Narnia. But I had a hard time keeping all of the characters straight, keeping the perspectives straight. As I was reading, I was listening to this on audiobook and I was cross-stitching, and I wasn't even falling asleep, but I'd get to a point and be like, wait, I don't understand how we got here. Eventually I could sort of pick it up and be like, wait, what? Okay, I think I understand how we got here. And then towards the end, I was getting sleepier, so I stopped cross-stitching and was just listening. And full disclosure, I did fall asleep because all of a sudden I'm like, wait, nothing's playing. Because I was only a few minutes away from finishing the book. I'm like, wait, what happened? And so I got the book because I have it physically, pulled up the last few pages, and I sort of skimmed through, and I have no idea what happened. It makes not a lot of sense to me. So part of my experience with this book was, yes, I did fall asleep and did miss some stuff. If you're an author, don't put crucial, life-changing details in the last few pages. I think it does the readers a disservice. So I'm not sure if I'm going to pick up the sequel. I didn't really engage with the writing. There was some good stuff that intrigued me. I just don't know if it intrigued me enough to keep going with it. Only 2 more to go. One I just started, the other I finished. The one that I finished is Paris, the Memoir. And I had heard some things in the news, different articles and things, based on some things that she reveals in here. And it is really interesting to hear her describe the trauma that she underwent as a teenager when she got sent off to this camp for troubled teens that was absolutely terrible. As she's discussing how her life unfolded after that, it was really interesting to see how trauma impacted her life and changed directions. Like, it prevented her from really having a decent high school career because the credits that she supposedly earned in this program, she didn't actually earn. So once she finally got out of it, if she wanted to go to high school, she would have had to start as a sophomore. And she was like almost 18, which who wants to do that? So the direction of her life was completely different. And a lot of the actions that she took coming out of that were born out of things of her trauma, of how she dealt with it and how it expressed itself in her life. And this just was a really interesting look at someone's life. And I am very thankful that I decided to do memoir because it's given me the opportunity to hear so many more stories and hear so many different voices and learn so much that I didn't necessarily know before going into it. So speaking of memoir, the one that I just picked up is Thicker Than Water by Kerry Washington, who is the star of the hit show Scandal, which is no longer airing. It's wrapped up by now. Intriguingly, this is yet another memoir that my mom has read first. She's been listening to Trevor Noah's new podcast, and he interviewed Kerry Washington on there, and she wanted to read the book. And I'm like, hey, let me go ahead and purchase the audiobook with one of my credits on Libra so that you can listen to it as well, because it's part of my goal. So I'm just barely into this, but I really like her authorial voice and how she's telling it. So I'm excited to get into this one. Hopefully next time I won't have as many to update on. Okay, I filmed this update literally surrounded by books because I've got a lot of filming to do. I will mention it in my wrap up and TBR video that I am going to do a version of Vlogmas. Not a video per day, 3, probably 4 videos per day if I summon up the desire and will to actually film the videos. So that's what I'm working on. And one of those videos is a library tour, and I'm not going to tour the video in the library, I should say, in this current state. So I'm going to get this filming done, hopefully, and then do a library tour video. The books that I'm going to talk about, 2 of them are huge. 1 of them I do not have physically. So the first off that I have to talk about is The Fragile Threads of Power. I finally read this. Probably a 4-star. Definitely the lowest out of the 4 books in this series. V.E. Schwab has said that you can read this series separately, that you can start with this series. And everyone, including myself, has said, no, you cannot. It's so dependent on that previous series. So many of the major characters are from the previous series. Maybe you could understand things in here, but even the travel between the Londons and what is an Antari and how does their magic work, none of that is explained in this book. All of it is explained in the previous series. V. Schwab, I love your works, really do, but you're wrong about this. They've got to read the previous series. This is good. It's not bad. I was enjoyed, I was captivated, I love these characters. This was just filler and setup. If this is going to be a trilogy, this feels like a waste of a book, because all that we're doing in this book is setting up the pieces on the chessboard. We're reminiscing about what has happened in this 7-year time jump to the characters that we know and also the characters that we don't know. And there's 2 new characters. One is mentioned a lot in recaps and stuff, and one is not mentioned. So one of the new characters lives in White London and is really involved in the situations there. That's all I'll say about that character. And the other one is the one that is mentioned most often, and that is Tess. I believe this is supposed to be Tess, but she's someone that's similar-ish to Ellicard, and that she can see magic and she sees them as threads. But she also has the ability to manipulate those threads, and that becomes incredibly important. But all that we're doing in this basically is setup. And that does not make for a compelling read, which is, I mean, I get it. I see where she's going. I get that she has a purpose in this. It's not nearly as compelling as any of the other 3 books. And I sound really negative, but I did enjoy this book. It's just nowhere near the other books in this series. And I will be unhauling this version because I do have that Owl Crate. Yes, Owl Crate Special Edition. Before I get to the other massive book, I'm going to talk about the book that I finished just a couple hours ago, and that is one of the memoirs. And I had access to it on my Kindle, so I read it as an ebook, and that is The Many Lives of Mama Love. This woman can write. That is her skill. That's how she makes her living. I really appreciate reading memoirs written by authors, like people who have those literary skills. Not that other people don't, but that came out weird. Anyway, her first name is Laura, or Lana. I forget which one. But her actual last name for a while was Love. She talks briefly about some of her growing up years, because the story really starts when she ends up going to prison for various crimes related to her drug addiction. How she gets through that, all of the processes put in place that are just ridiculous, absolutely terrible. She talks about some of this, and sometimes she just says things and it's like, is this normal? No, this is ridiculous. This is impossible. And she makes observations that don't take up a lot of time in the narrative, but you have to sit with. They're incredibly important. Like the idea that in her early release program that she got involved in, she was a candidate for, part of it was she still had to come back and work. And she makes a comment, and I don't remember the exact words, about how the carceral system would not function, would not work if they did not depend on the unpaid labor of the inmates. You just stop and think about that for a while. She also talks about the fact of how relatively easy she had it, even though it was incredibly difficult, but because she was a white woman of fairly higher, not high, but higher social standing, she discusses that briefly. I would have loved more look into that, But one of the things that made her as well known as she is the fact that she became a ghostwriter on, and I forgot his name, the gentleman who Bryan Stevenson worked with and got out of prison for unjust conviction. And his book was selected for Oprah's book club. And that event is what gained her the fame and the renown that she has. And she talked about it and the fact that he was unjustly convicted and all the things that he had to go through. And it just was a really powerful, hard-hitting book. And I hate the fact that, I mean, you know, they have to cut books. And it's a popularity contest, so the celebrity memoirs are going to make it on through. And even as I say that, though, a lot of those celebrity memoirs that I've read have been really hard-hitting as well. I think I might continually read this genre and look into acquiring and reading more of these memoirs as they come out through the year. And then the book that I am in the middle of, almost, but not quite 50%, and I've been listening to it for many hours. A Day, a Fallen Night. The audiobook for this is 38 hours long. That's if you listen at 1 time speed. Even sped up as fast as I can get it, it's like, I don't even know now because I've changed the speed various times. That's one of the biggest complaints that I have. It's not about the book itself, it's about the narration. There are different narrators for each of the point of view characters, and I really appreciate that. But one of these narrators, she speaks at a normal clip for most of the time, but she takes so many dramatic pauses. At one point, I didn't actually look at how many seconds were in between, but I was listening to it at like 2.75 speed, and some of the pauses at that speed were 1 to 2 seconds long. So are you taking pauses of like 4 to 5 seconds? So that definitely contributes to the pace. And I've also had to slow it down a little bit because of one of the other narrators who speaks with a bit of an accent. I think it's supposed to evoke a Scottish accent. So I'm listening to it slower than I would like, but faster than other people might. And it took me a while to get into this book. It's very slow moving. But the story that Samantha Shannon is weaving for each of these point of view characters is fascinating. I just kind of wish that she separated it into maybe separate books, separate perspectives, not separate perspectives, but like separate books, because it's so much to keep track of in this massive, sprawling, expansive world. I mean, this book is almost 900 pages. There's no reason for it to be that long. She could take 2 of each of these perspectives and split them off and have 2 separate books. And I think that would do the story so much better. I am enjoying it, but it is very taxing because you have to keep so much straight that's happening, so many different rulers, so many different issues that they're dealing with, and there is a lot of political intrigue, and I'm really enjoying that. But again, there's just so much of it. I don't think I'm gonna finish that by tomorrow. I might, I hope I will, because there's a couple other memoirs that I now have access to on audiobook, and I would like to get those read, but I'm gonna end up with about 16 books read for fantasy and young adult fantasy, and probably 12 books for memoir, which is not too shabby considering the amount of books that I had to read, especially for memoir. And I think I've made the decision that I'm not going to read Powerless by Lauren Roberts on the young adult books list, just because there's no way that I'll be able to get access to it before any of the time frames. So, and it's not something I'm particularly drawn to read anyway. So we're going to leave that one there. And I'll hopefully wrap this up with one more check-in tomorrow. So I didn't intend to do all of my updates from this one particular spot, but with all of the bulk filming that I've been doing, it just worked to do all the updates already in the setup. I have not finished any books since yesterday, and I figured that might be the case because this book just feels like it's taking forever to get through. There's just so much in this book, and the thing that will probably keep my rating lower is just how long it feels like I'm taking to get through this book. It's not as engaging or riveting as I would have hoped. And yes, some other things have distracted me, but at the same time, there's no need for it to be this long. And my brain just wants a change, but I also want to finish it. If I did nothing else besides listen to this until I went to bed tonight, I could probably finish this book. I don't think I'm going to do that, but we shall see. At any rate, I'm going to finish it tomorrow, and my final thoughts will be in that update. The other book that I started reading on ebook, obviously because I do not have a physical copy of, is Foxglove, which is the sequel to Belladonna. And I enjoyed Belladonna. I've been a little bit distracted getting into Foxglove. The writing is good, it flows well. Part of the hesitation for me also comes with the fact that I am trying to remind myself of what happened in the first book. When I read so much, even if I read it within a year of reading the first book, I'm still gonna forget some stuff. And so part of my hesitation is with that. The other thing is, I've discovered that I don't really like the whole immortal being falling in love with someone who is of age in human years, but the age gap is ginormous. There may be some things in this book where it turns out that it's not so much of a gap, but we don't know that for sure, and that is a bit of spoiler. Maybe I'm only 150 or pages through this. I don't know why I put "or" in there so many times. Anyway, I'm clearly tired. It's time to shut off my brain and get ready for the last quote-unquote normal week of school before exams and break, and hopefully some brand new students next semester. Thanks so much for watching. I hope to see you in the next one.